In the heart of Ogba, where the mangroves stretched their arms towards oil-streaked waters, lived a man named Maurice. By all appearances, he was a man of influence, respected in his community, a man whose voice commanded attention. But beneath the surface, hidden behind the smile of a well-dressed, successful man, lay secrets, sins buried under the weight of pretense. At 35, Maurice carried the burden of a past he thought he had escaped. He had tasted the pleasures of the world, indulged in its fleeting passions, and lived a life of reckless abandon. Yet, despite the wealth, the women, and the admiration of many, his soul remained restless. His heart knew emptiness, even when his hands were full. One fateful day, something within him broke. He found himself in the Dawn Chapel, a small, unassuming church nestled at the edge of town. The air was thick with the scent of dust and old wooden pews. As the choir sang of grace and redemption, something stirred in him, a longing he had long ignored. Then, without warning, his knees hit the floor. His hands trembled. His lips quivered with words he could barely form. He was not kneeling as a proud man that day, but as a broken soul seeking light. Maurice gave his life to Christ. His tears, hot and heavy, were not just of sorrow but of surrender. The man who once lived in the shadows now stood in the brightness of grace. He was no longer the Maurice of yesterday. With passion and zeal, he immersed himself in the Word. His transformation was undeniable. The fire in his heart burned bright, consuming every trace of his past. He spoke with conviction, his sermons reaching the deepest corners of hearts. Hope blossomed where there was despair. His voice became a beacon for the lost. It wasn't long before he was ordained as a pastor, a man once entangled in sin now leading others to salvation. But while he embraced his calling, he forgot one thing: his past was not done with him yet. Her name was Erica. At 27, she was beautiful, striking, in fact. But beneath her beauty was a heart bruised by rejection, hardened by pain. She had been a storm Maurice once danced with, a woman of reckless passion and dangerous charm. She loved Maurice. At least, she thought she did. But love turned into bitterness the day he walked away from her, disgusted by her reckless, promiscuous ways. He left her without warning, without closure. When news of his transformation reached her ears, her heart did not break, it hardened. He thinks he can erase me, forget me, become a saint while I remain the scar of his past. No. I will remind him who he is, who he was, and who he will always be. Erica vowed to bring him down. She would not be forgotten. She would be his downfall. One Sunday morning, the Dawn Chapel was filled with worshippers, their hands lifted high in praise. Maurice stood at the pulpit, delivering a message of redemption. His voice was steady, his words filled with power. Then, she walked in. Dressed in modest clothing, her face an imitation of innocence, Erica weaved her way to the front pew. Her eyes glistened, not with repentance, but with intention. Maurice saw her. And in that moment, the battle began. Not between him and Erica, but within his own heart. At home, Tessy waited. Maurice's wife, 26 years old, gentle yet strong. She had always known when something was amiss, even before words were spoken. Lately, her husband was distant. His late nights became more frequent. The warmth in his embrace felt colder. The man she married was slipping away, but into what, she did not know. Then, one rainy evening, the trap was set. The glow of a single candle flickered in Erica's apartment, its dim light casting shadows on the walls. She was waiting, draped in vulnerability, wrapped in temptation. When Maurice stepped through that door, it was not just rain that poured, it was the weight of the moment. Words were spoken, words of concern, words of old memories, words of false regret. Then came the touch. Then came the fall. Maurice, torn between duty and desire, gave in. He did not just fall into her arms, he fell into ruin. The morning after was more than just shame, it was the beginning of the end. Pictures leaked. Whispers turned into rumors. Rumors became undeniable truth. The pulpit that once held his proud sermons now echoed with his absence. The church that once praised him now turned away in disappointment. The man who once preached about integrity had become a living contradiction. Tessy did not scream. She did not hurl accusations. But her silence was louder than any words could ever be. She looked at Maurice, not with hatred, but with heartbreak. Not because of his betrayal, but because of the lies that built the distance between them. Her tears were not of anger, but of deep, unspeakable sorrow. Maurice lost everything, his ministry, his reputation, even himself. He wandered in the wilderness of regret. The world that once celebrated him now had no place for him. The woman who had tempted him was gone, and the wife he had betrayed was distant. But sometimes, the deepest pit is where grace finds us. Years passed. In his solitude, Maurice met God not in the walls of a church, but in his brokenness. It was in his darkest moment that he truly understood grace. And Tessy, she forgave. Not because it was easy, not because she forgot, but because grace had rewritten her heart. Even Erica, the architect of his fall, found herself staring at an emptiness that revenge could not fill. She too knelt at an altar, not of wood, but of surrender. And so, in the town of Ogba, a man who lost his pulpit found his purpose. A woman who was betrayed found healing. And a soul once driven by vengeance found peace. Moral lesson. From the tale of Maurice, Tessy, and Erica, we learn this: it is not enough to walk away from the past. You must confront it, heal from it, and close its doors properly. Hidden sins are seeds that grow in the dark, and unresolved wounds become traps waiting to be triggered. Pride makes us believe we are strong enough to manage temptation, but true strength lies in humility, accountability, and transparency. And when we fall, as humans often do, it is not the end. For even from the ruins of broken altars, grace can rebuild what was lost if the heart is truly repentant. In the end, redemption is not just for the righteous, it's for the broken, the betrayed, and even the betrayer. Let he who thinks he stands take heed, lest he falls.